Okay, so video games to movie adaptations have not been the best lately, and we're definitely looking at you, Halo and Resident Evil. More than not, as a fan, we just want to see our video game in a movie or a series format that actually maintains the story and just keeps the characters that we hold dear. So the Last of Us game has easily one of the best, if not the best, stories in the game. The game takes players on unforgettable and emotional journey, highs and just some lows, and it forces us to play these experiences that are heart wrenching and difficult, crazy situations and circumstances. Um, it is one thing to play the Last of Us game, but how would it be watching The Last of Us as a series? The Last of Us series, episode 1, it just debuted on HBO Max, and of course, very high expectation because it has very large shoes to fill. All that to say, we just hope that they really do this series justice, and we just want to share our thoughts and opinions, and we promise that the next video intros are not going to take this long. If you haven't watched, then definitely they're going to be spoilers. I can't even promise not to spoil. It just is what it is. Make sure you guys check out the series on HBO Max. That being said, let's recap episode 1 of the Last of Us series. The first episode did just a perfect job of introducing us to just the settings and the characters. As a live action series, I just love that it's able to show more of the surrounding stories while sticking to the main storyline. So the episode begins with a talk show back in 1968, and with all of its smoking live on TV, with scientists just discussing the possibilities of future pandemics. One of the doctors, Dr. Newman, brings up the thought that maybe it wouldn't be bacterial or a virus pandemic, but in fact, maybe fungal. All the audience start laughing at him. A reaction the doctor is more than used to, it seems. He then goes into the explanation that there is a fungi that seeks not to kill the host, but to control the host. He describes that there's a particular fungus that attaches itself to ants, and it actually makes its way into the circulatory system of the ant, to the brain, and starts to control the ant. He explains what the fungus needs to do in order to survive. And now his explanation of just everything is genuinely mind-filling and actually nerve-wracking. Eventually, the audience and the host is just left speechless, as the thought of a fungal pandemic actually seems more plausible than not. Okay, folks, so the way that the first episode just sets the perfect tone of the series without having to go into, some long out way of explain and everything is just perfect. It presents a very plausible situation that already exists in nature, and that with the right circumstances, it could actually be likely. And you know what? After watching this, I felt so uneasy. And I think I would imagine that that's how the feeling would be if I was sitting in the audience listening. And it's just creepy. So fast forward 35 years and we meet Sarah and Joel. Joel is a 36-year-old single dad. Sarah is a teenager. Then there's Tommy, who is Joel's brother, and he's stopping by to pick up Joel for a construction job. That's what they work, construction. It is clear that Joel and Sarah just have this dependable relationship. She loves and basically takes care of her dad, and he just equally loves her and provides for her as his daughter. Okay, so it's Joel's 36th birthday, but because he needs to do a double shift, he won't be home until later, and because of that, he promises Sarah that he'll bring home the cake. Now, on the news, we can hear a brief report of an incident or disturbance in Jakarta. After that, before they leave, Sarah goes into Joel's bedroom, goes into the drawer, and takes out a watch along with some money. Okay, so something again to point out is just how Sarah really takes care of Joel. Um, it's, she points out to him that he has his shirt inside out, so basically he can't even dress himself. It was just a touching and a funny interaction. So we just love how Joel and Sarah, even though they clearly aren't enthused about their neighbors, the Adlers, they just really kind of play off of each other, being cordial with them. Joel and Sarah are some stand-up people. They're the neighbors that you would want. It's pretty nice to see. In the end, Sarah agrees to come by the neighbors and to visit them after school. Now, as they drive off, we see that Uncle Tommy is a combat veteran of Operation Desert Storm. In class, Sarah is taking notes, but is just distracted by the light reflecting off of a student's bracelet that's right next to her. And then we see that the student's hand is kind of twitching nervously. And right about then, we start hearing another student cough. Now, it could be nothing or it could be something. Who knows? The bell rings and Sarah hurries off onto a bus, and the bus takes her to a small store, a watch store in the city. And the assumption is that she's selling the watch, but in fact, she is actually getting her dad's watch fixed. The spring that needs to be replaced is a quick and easy fix. Then we start hearing sirens and a fire truck, and a SWAT vehicle go speeding by. The shopkeeper kind of makes an exclamation that things like this have been happening all day. And right as the shopkeeper wife kind of hurries out of the back and hurries Sarah out because the shop is closed, and she kind of apologizes to Sarah. The wife says something in Arabic, and the shopkeeper, kind of confused, tells her that it's 3:15 and they're closed at 7 o'clock. She continues in Arabic, and again, she apologizes to Sarah that, he will not be able to finish the watch. But right then, the shopkeeper tells her that no, in fact, he's finished. The wife, with concern in her eye, kind of tells Sarah, look, you should go home. Right as she ushers her out the door, she immediately locks the door and closes the shade. Sarah's kind of confused, and also she's looking around and the streets are eerily empty. So Sarah returns to the neighbor's house. She asks the neighbor whether or not she has noticed anything weird going on lately, like in the news. When the neighbor, Mrs. Adler, asks for examples, Sarah kind of mentions that there just seems to be more police on the road, to which Mrs. Adler just kind of brushes it off as something that happens every day and that people just need to get right with Jesus. Mrs. Adler then suggests that, they're making some cookies. And Sarah hopingly asks the question, chocolate chip? To which Mrs. Adler's response, raisins. Now, Sarah's face has the unmistakable look of disappointment. Okay, I just have to mention this. Nico Parker, I love her expressions. She has really brought to life the character of Sarah from the game. They have made it so easily to connect with her, which is exactly what we need to do. And for us that we've played the game, it's even more important because we know what's coming. And if it's not a gut punch, then it's going to be a little bit harder to connect with Joel. So great job. Sarah, sitting at the kitchen counter as Miss Adler is attempting to feed her elderly wheelchair-bound mother. The buzzer from the stove starts letting us know that the cookies are actually done. Sarah seems distracted and starts to look around and then spots some DVDs on the shelf. Mrs. Adler calls her to give her a hand in the kitchen, and Sarah lets her know that she'll be right there. Now, the camera is showing Sarah with the grandmother out of focus behind her, and the grandmother starts to twitch erratically in her wheelchair, and at one point her mouth just starts to open up really wide. Sarah turns away with the DVD in hand, not seeing the horrific activity happening in the wheelchair behind her, and then asks Miss Adler if she could borrow the DVD. She gets some cookies from Miss Adler, and as she's leaving to go home, she notices that the neighbor's dog, Mercy, is sitting staring at the grandmother and just whimpering. And at this point, the grandmother is just sitting there, no longer twitching. We can just really start to feel the tension ramping up. And I also love the way that they shot the grandmother twitching, not fully showing it, which just made it even more creepy. Also, FYI, in the game, it's the neighbor that tries to break into Joel's house when they're infected. So seeing where the infection started, that really kind of gives a more whole story. So good job with that. So Sarah steps outside and notices 3 low-flying jets. And it becomes later in the night, and now Joel is home just later than normal. Oh, I just want to point out that watch this series with the closed captioning on, because it's a really good idea. Reason being, we didn't hear the news on the television as they talk about violent incidences across the city happening and how they equated it to actually a new street jug. So definitely try doing that, closed captioning. So he apologizes for being late, and as well as for forgetting the cake. She says that he's not going to get his present, and he swears that he'll get the cake tomorrow. And so Sarah gives him his repaired watch. He loves it. And just the banter between father and daughter again reinforces the deep, close relationship that they have with each other. He thanks her. Then she gives him the DVDs, which is one that he's always wanted to see. Now later, Joel gets a call from Tommy asking him to get bailed out of jail. Joel then puts Sarah to bed. 3 hours later, Sarah is awakened by sounds of a low-flying helicopter. It just seems to shake the house. She checks the television, which is just telling folks to stay indoors. She's startled by a banging on the sliding door, and we notice that it's Mercy, the neighbor's dog, and the dog is barking and clawing to get in. The dog is just scared of something. Sarah is attempting to take the dog home, but the dog is just not wanting and breaks free from his collar. Now Sarah goes into the neighbor's house, where then she sees a trail of blood and Mr. Adler bleeding on the ground. He's still alive. His eyes point to something beside Sarah, and it's the grandmother biting Mrs. Adler. And as the grandmother slowly looks up at Sarah, you can see tendril clusters in her mouth. She screams at Sarah and starts to chase her. And as she chases Sarah out of the house, Joel and Tommy pull up in the truck. Joel yells for Sarah to get into the truck as the old lady is stumbling out of the house, and she collapses on the ground for a little bit. Then she jumps back up and starts running towards Joel. Tommy, with his rifle raised, is asking Joel, what are you going to do? What's he doing? She continues to run towards Joel, and Joel, just with a wrench in the hand, hits her in the head, killing her. Sarah is in shock, tears running down her face. Joel apologizes and reassures Sarah that this is not the Adlers. At that point, the street transformer explodes as they jump in the truck to leave. Another neighbor comes out and to try to find out what is going on, and Joel yells to them to get back in the house and to lock the door. And as they drive off, more infected people are seen. At that point, Tommy speeds up and hits one of them. Through the back of the window, the neighbors go out to check on the infected people that just got hit, and they are then attacked. And as they leave, Sarah starts to ask Joel, what's going on? But he's like, I don't know. And then Tommy starts saying this, maybe he heard it's a virus, to which Joel retorts that no, they don't know. On the side of the road, there's a family that has a broken down vehicle, and the man starts flagging down Tommy for help. He starts to slow down, but Joel tells him, no, keep driving. Now we see that the highway is packed with traffic as other people are trying to leave the town and decide to cut across the grass, only to find out that it is blocked by the army. Their plan right now is to cut through the town, and on the way there, you see 3 airliners flying really low. The road is then blocked by police cars, and now they have to make a right-hand turn to try and find another way. The road is now filled with people screaming and running. Some of the people are bleeding. Some of the people are being attacked. Tommy can't drive any further, so what he has to do is back up. And as he's backing up, you can see an airplane coming down out of the air, crashing. Tommy slams the car into drive to avoid the plane. The plane explodes on impact, sending debris and fire everywhere and knocking the truck upside down. Everyone is alive, Although Sarah is hurt in the truck, it's her ankle and she's in pain and she can't walk. As they're trying to move, a sheriff vehicle comes slamming into the truck, and now Tommy is separated from Joel and Sarah. And because of this, because the vehicles are now on fire, Tommy and Joel decide to find a way to meet up. And Joel, with Sarah in his hands, turn down an alleyway, run into a group of infected feeding on people, and some of those people are still alive. While backing away, one of the infected sees Joel and Sarah and began to chase them. Now Joel kicks down the back of a diner and then enters into the diner as the infected continue to chase. Now they manage to make it outside. As the infected is about to catch them, he is shot dead. Okay, so about now my heart is pumping and I'm getting that sick feeling in my stomach because the moment it's coming. A soldier raises his rifle and tells them not to move. Joel tells the soldier that they're not sick. The soldier commands them again not to move and radios for his command. Joel continues to insist that they're not sick. The soldier, getting orders from command, acknowledges continually, and with a final yes sir, he raises the rifle and approaches Joel and Sarah. As Joel continues to insist, the soldier opens fire. Joel and Sarah fall down the hill. The soldier then now approaches Joel, who's lying on the ground. The soldier says, "I'm sorry," but before he can shoot Joel, he is shot by Tommy. As Joel assesses himself for any injuries, he hears Sarah whimpering, and Joel sees Sarah on the ground and crawls over to her, just repeating, "Oh no, oh no, oh no." She's covered in blood. She was shot in the stomach and she is just in a lot of pain. She's panting, she's wincing, and Joel tries to see where the wound is. Joel applies pressure to the wound and it really hurts and she knows it hurts, and he's like, "I know," and he's just attempting to hold her and move her, but she's in so much pain. Joel then asks Tommy for help, but all Tommy can say is Joel, and Joel turns around and sees that Sarah is dead in his arm, and all he can say is, "Come on, baby girl." He's just not accepting that his daughter is now dead. The episode cuts to black and we are now 20 years later. Okay, so I've watched this episode about 3 or so times. I've played the game numerous of times, and every single time, this moment right here breaks me. There's a certain relationship that a father has with his daughter, or a parent with a child, that this scene, it just triggers some relatable pain. And these key events in the Last of Us game are just pinnacle moments that we as the gamer, we're looking forward to it. I mean, we just want to see how it's presented to us. We know it's coming, but this is definitely one of those pinnacle moments. Okay, so a child stumbles through the woods of a quarantine zone in Boston. They collapse, and the watch guards at the entrance take them in, and they're strapped into a wheelchair. They're run through tests, and they're cleared and given a shot and told that they're now safe. Now, one way to dispose of bodies is to burn them, and truckloads of bodies are just being tossed in a bonfire. A truck pulls up where a lady opens the back of the truck to reveal more bodies. She pauses and then touches a much older Joel and tells him that she can't. Joel looks in the back of the truck and sees that it's the child who's now dead, with his hands and feet tied and a bag over its head. Joel, no hesitation, picks the body up and discards it into the fire. Now, Joel does various of jobs in the QZ, which is controlled by Fedra. Fedra is a military group that uses military court-martialing as a means to uphold the rules and the law of the QZ. And it is clear that if you break the rules, you are going to be put, or you can be put to death. Joel also smuggles things in and out of QZ. He exchanges some ration cards for some pills for a Fedra soldier. Joel is trying to get a vehicle. While making a deal with the soldier makes mention to stay off the streets because the resistance group, Fireflies, have been blowing things up and shooting soldiers. And the commands are really working the soldiers overtime with more shifts. And because of that, the soldiers are now more jumpy and more likely to make a mistake in the dark. Now, the Firefly graffitis, "When you're lost in the darkness, look for the light." Held in a dark room is Tess, held by Robert and some of his men. Tess has signs of being in a fight over her face, and Robert is trying to come to an arrangement with Tess. But it just seems that Robert has sold the battery to somebody else, the battery that Tess had purchased from him. He ripped them off. He ripped her off. Tess just wants to leave. And as she's talking, a bomb goes off, blowing open the wall and killing some of Robert's men. That allows Tess to now leave that room. Now outside in the streets, a Jeep is on fire and alarms are blaring. The Fedra and Fireflies, they're in a firefight, and Tess ducks to cover. And as she does, she sees some Fedra soldiers approaching from down the street. She stands up, raises her hands, surrendering and telling them that she's not a Firefly. They don't listen. They just take her, handcuff her, put her into custody. Tied to a radiator is a young girl. A lady with a clipboard enters the room, and the young girl kicks the tray to the lady. She then asks to count 10 slowly, to which the young girl starts to count quickly. She's interrupted by the lady with the clipboard and reminded slowly and clearly. She does so and then finishes the counting off with F you and the middle finger. Other tests like holding her hand steady, which she does before the lady even finishes asking her, and also her name, which the young lady states Veronica. She's being held by the Fireflies because we know this. There's a logo on the back of the door and the small graffiti phrase on the wall. Okay, Veronica, really? All right, so just based on the viceness of we know she's not Veronica. That's not her name, but we'll call her Veronica. Wink, wink. So there's a long line of people, and some of the people are frantically scribbling on paper down this corridor. We see Joel walks right by them, seemingly cutting this line entirely. Inside of a room is a man with a pretty impressive radio setup. He's actually broadcasting and receiving messages for people. Joel is waiting for word to or from his brother Tommy. Joel asks for the tower's location on the map. Reluctantly, the man marks the location, which is in Wyoming. Joel returns to his apartment, and in a hidden section on the floor, he pulls out some items, one of them being a map, which he uses to trace a route, and then he starts downing some alcohol and pill. Still wearing the watch from Sarah, and it's broken. He goes and collapses in the bed, and shortly after that, Tess comes in and lies down beside him. Next morning, Tess tells Joel that she got jumped, and as he's examining her face, she tells him who jumped her, which were Robert's men, and also that Robert sold the battery. She asks Joel to be calm because they will need to quietly find out who Robert sold the battery to. If they're not quiet about it, then he's going to disappear. Marlene is the leader of the Boston faction of the Fireflies. She's asked by another Firefly member, Kim, why was there a girl tied up, and the guards weren't really telling her anything. Marlene orders the other two out of the room, and there she admits that the Fireflies were actually attacking Fedra everywhere except where Fedra headquarters was. The plan is to distract them and have all the Fireflies leave the QZ permanently and take Veronica with them to head west. Marlene hands Kim a piece of paper that explains why, and Kim asks if this is real, and Marlene says she believes it is, but to keep it quiet. Now Kim is all in, and she's ready to do whatever it takes. In the town square, Joel watches over Tess as she's having a meeting with some guy. As Joel stands there, another man comes up to Joel and asks if he's feeling lost. So Joel's quick comeback with, if you tell me to look for the lights, I'm gonna break your effing jaw, made me just bust out laughing because he cares nothing for the Firefly or for Fedra. He's in that world, but he's there for himself and his goals, and I love this character. Tess is now able to find out where Robert is, and Tess and Joel make a plan to go confront him. Back in the room where Veronica is held, she's still attempting to get free from the chains. Frustrated, she sits down with her eyes closed, and at that moment, the sound of the front door opening is heard. She starts to count to 10, and then stops when she sees Marlene, who then tosses her backpack. Veronica rushes to open the backpack, and she pulls out a switchblade. Marlene just calmly sits down next to her. Marlene starts to tell Veronica that she's the one that actually saved her life by telling the Fireflies not to shoot her. And Marlene then unlocks her handcuffs and she asks how she was feeling, and Veronica answers the same and then asks, is there anything going to happen to me? And Marlene replies, no. She asks then, can she go? And Marlene tells her, no. Well, then we find out that Veronica was once at a federal school where she's been trained to be a soldier. She was put there as a baby since she was an orphan. And Marlene corrects Veronica by telling her that actually she's the one that put her there, and her name is not Veronica, it's actually Ellie. Okay, so even though I knew this already, it was just really good to hear. So Marlene introduces herself to Ellie, and then Ellie asks, then why would a terrorist hand her over to Fedra? Marlene snaps back with, that's where you would have been the safest, and then asks, was Riley a terrorist? No, okay. Riley. Oh my goodness. I really hope that this series shares with us about Riley. For those of us who've played The Last of Us, the DLC Left Behind, she's definitely one of Ellie's best friends and just more. We did see a little bit of showing with Riley and Ellie in the trailers. We just hope that it's not just a quick flashback, and fingers crossed they go in depth. Ellie asks painfully about why won't Marlene let her go, and Marlene explains to Ellie that there is a greater purpose that any of them could have ever imagined. She lets her know that they're going to be leaving tonight and shares with her what we can only assume was what was written on the paper and she shared with Kim earlier. She expressed not to tell anybody because if she did, she definitely will die. Joel and Tess makes it to the location of where Robert is. They make their way through the subway and find a marked door. As Tess enters the door, she's looking around her flashlight and she's frightened by a body stuck to the wall infected by fungi. Can I just say how awesome and terrifying that actually looked? Oh my goodness, wow. Tess and Joel continue up a series of ladders that are all tied together, and they reach the door that they need to go through, but the door is stuck. They both then smell gunpowder, and then they see blood leaking from underneath the door. They push the door, and they see that it's actually blocked by a dead body. The dead body is Robert, and in the hallway lay a whole bunch of Robert's men, all dead. On the ground next to Robert is the battery that Tess and Joel needed, and that's when they notice that the battery is actually no good. Joel hears someone down the hallway, and as he comes around the corner, he sees that it's Marlene and Kim. From the side room, Ellie jumps out, tries to attack Joel with her knife, and is just knocked to the ground easily. I mean, he just dish-ragged her. Marlene recognizes Joel, and Joel recognizes Marlene. She explains that a deal with Robert for the battery went bad. Joel then asks Marlene, what does she need a car battery for? As Ellie tries to get her knife, Joel points the gun at Ellie, and Marlene is quick to tell him, don't point the gun at Ellie, point at us. Marlene explains that they need the battery for something that's much more important than Tommy, who's just one man. And she continues that what they were going to do was to move Ellie out of the QZ that night. Now, since Marlene no longer has the manpower and she and Kim are injured, she really wants Joel and Tess to smuggle Ellie out, to which Joel fires back, they don't smuggle people. Okay, another laugh moment when Kim volunteers to do it and Marlene is like, you won't even have an ear, so please. Now, the look in Kim's eyes was like, okay, but it also looks like, man, that was really hurtful. Marlene continues that there's a group of Fireflies at the old State House, and that's where Joel would need to take Ellie. Now, she makes a deal with Joel to get him everything he needs, guns, a truck, supplies. Joel and Tess kind of talk it out, and they agree to the deal. Joel, Tess, and Ellie head back to a hideout, and while Joel and Tess kind of step outside, Ellie finds what looks to be codes. 60, nothing in, 70, new stock, 80, and X. Ellie later asks Joel about the codes and who Bill and Frank is, and Joel ignores her and takes a nap to kill time. While talking with Joel, Ellie kind of figures out that 80 means 80s music, and that means trouble. Tess arrives and says it's time to go. They make their way outside of the QZ and staying low not to be spotted. As they come around a corner, a soldier spots them, and it's the same soldier that Joel sold the pills to. He orders them to get on the ground as he tests them for infection. Joel and Tess are not sick, but Ellie, kind of nervous, stabs the soldier in the leg. Joel then gets between Ellie and the soldier. Joel is pleading with the soldier as the soldier's ordering Joel to move. Then we see flashback of Joel and Sarah, and Joel snaps, tackling the soldier to the ground and just punching him to death. Tess then sees the test, and it shows that Ellie is in fact infected. And Ellie starts to yell that she's not sick, and Tess starts to yell for Joel. And it's about that time where Ellie tells them that yes, she was bitten, but it was like 3 weeks ago and nothing has happened. Right then, we hear the sounds of Fedra approaching, which then forces them to continue into the contaminating zone. Back at the hideout, the radio cuts on, and it's playing the 1980s Never Let Me Down Again song by Depeche Mode. Right then, as Joel, Tess, and Ellie make their way, we glimpse a creature of some sort on the top of the roof of a building. And that's the end of episode 1. Okay, oh my goodness. So this has been the very first time I've ever done a recap video of a series. Please let me know how I did, and if you have any constructive comments, please definitely share it with us. So here's why I am very hopeful for the series of The Last of Us game. So far, they have stuck to the source. They've kind of expanded on some things that give a glimpse of what the game couldn't really get into because it would just be really long. And all that's to say that that's all that we as gamers want. We know the game pretty much inside and out. We know the surprises. We know how the game is ending. We just want to see it on the screen. And this first episode gives us a lot of hope because it seems like that's what they're doing. And it is so thumbs up. We loved the first episode and can't wait for episode 2. Again, folks, The Last of Us series it's on HBO Max. It's every Sunday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is a new episode. Do us a favor if you want to check it out. Go ahead, check it out. And let us know in the comment section, what do you think of this episode or just this series? Have you played the games and everything like that? Of course, again, if you liked this video, if you liked this recap, please hit that like button. Let us know. If you want to support the channel even further, just subscribing to the channel goes a long way. Hitting that subscribe button and hitting the notification bell to let you know when a new video is up. That really, really helps. You can also share out and just spread the word and everything like that. But honestly, we are so excited for doing these recap videos. Again, I give so much props and respect to people that do this. It's a lot of work. It took a while and, wow. But yeah, that's all I got. So till the next recap video of episode number 2, I'm Silent X. We're Confident Gamers. Real gamers keep gaming. All right, folks. Peace.